If nothing ever changed, there'd be no butterflies. Isn't that sad? Nature is so beautiful. How many of you spent time this morning just looking out at nature and see what changed and how things are growing and changing and moving? We need more time to do that. I think when Gretchen and everyone was singing about cool change, we can think about, take time to look at God's handiwork. But before we can really talk about change, I think we need to talk about some of the tenets and the beliefs and the truths that we know in our teaching and our understanding. We believe, and let me read this from Ernest Holm, in the physical world, things are always changing, right? Have you noticed? Dang it, yeah, we do. But in the spiritual world, God never changes. Behind the endless process of change, there is that which does not change. Now, this is not a new thought. This is not a new thought. Maybe it's new for some of us. But 2,500 years ago, Aristotle talked about the unmoved mover. You heard that? The unmoved mover. And let me say what that is. He said, this was 25 years ago in his book, Metaphysics, there must be an immortal, unchanging being, ultimately responsible for all the wholeness and the orderliness in the sensible world, which says this world is not made of chaos. There's chaos and change and creation, but this world is not made of chaos. As Einstein said, God doesn't play dice with the universe. There is a stability and an unchangeable energy that is continually giving birth in the physical world, giving birth to itself. Ernest Holmes also said that all seeming change, now think about this, all seeming change is merely the play of life upon itself, the eternal activity of spirit within itself passing into form. Because we know one of our main tenets that God is all there is. Everything comes from that unmovable mover, from that unchangeless energy that is intelligence and creativity and possibility. And as Dave said and the song said, it is love. And we all come from that. So what's the problem? Why aren't we willing to show up for that energy and be part of that creative process of change? Well, dang it, we get stuck. We get stuck in limited, outdated thinking, just as Dave was talking about. And Dave, to tie you into some of the things that were talked about this morning too, I was talking to Randy and Lori this week and talking about the class, and Randy gave me one of the books. And I said, I'm aware of Raymond Charles Barker. Of course, I've heard of him. He was big in the movement, but I don't know him too well. So Randy gave me one of his books, and I'm looking at, okay, what's the problem here? Why can't we get rid? Don't you ever wonder why you can't get rid of your stupid, limited thinking? I do. Why can't we just say, hey, I don't want that anymore? Well, here's what Raymond Charles Barker says, and it's on page 75 that I just happened to open to first. And he said, you may have mental blocks to success, even though you did not choose to have them, because you have unconsciously allowed world opinions, or race consciousness, or collective consciousness as we call it, to come in and tell you an untruth. Right? But then he says, you can rid yourself of these blocks. We can do that. We can get rid of the blocks, but it takes focus, discipline, and deliberate choice. We'll hold on to these stupid things and stay in our little ruts of our same living and our same judgment and our same closed-mindedness until we choose to change. And when we choose to change, we can make things happen. Well, how can you tell? Just how can you tell? You may think you're fine. And then your friends can tell you you're not, especially people you're really close to. But We minimize our power to change because just what I talked about Jane Goodall, things, as her friend said, things seem overwhelming. And if you are filled with worry and doubt and fear, then you're not understanding what life is really about. We have to learn to trust the process. If you haven't noticed, life doesn't always work out the way we want. But if we trust the process and truly believe that God, goodness, life is always conspiring for our good, always, there's not a time where there's not a goodness waiting to happen in our life. But it takes time and it takes patience. So check yourself. If you've fallen into that mode, oh, well, I can't do that. Well, there's not enough time, there's not enough money, there's not enough, then we're not open to the greater possibility that wants to give birth in, through, and as us all the time. It's there. We have to have a willingness to be open to something more. The queen and the founder of the Human Potential Movement, Jean Houston, which was one of my favorite and most wonderful teachers for many, many years, she said, we must continue to till the soil of our soul. Till the soil of our soul. Just as we would not neglect a seed we had planted and still expect it to give us a fruit, a vegetable, or a flower. Same with our soul. It needs tilling, it needs attention, it needs courage and willingness on the journey of our becoming. And that's what we need to do. We need to be there and be part of the process. Now let me tell you, I'm going to give you a little test. We talked about this unmovable mover, the all creative power, the infinite intelligence of which we're all part. Well, if we're going to be part of this creative process and really participate it and trust it, we need a strong root in spirit. And that root in spirit needs to have the participation of our head and our mind, which is the planner and the analyzer and the thinker, which often thinks too much and gets into analysis paralysis or obsessed on the negative, because our mind oftentimes has a bias towards what's wrong instead of what's right, because it's the analyzer. So we have to work on that. Our mind needs direction. It needs to have your reading material, have your classes, have your community, have whatever it is to help you get on the right track, to choose the right things and listen to the right voices and the right words. But that head has to be connected with the heart. How often are our head and heart at odds with each other? They're not in alignment with each other. The heart is the place of intuition, of love, of compassion. But sometimes it gets overwhelmed in its emotion and wants instant gratification, right? I want this now. I want love now. I want this to work now. That needs motivation. So our head needs direction, focus, discipline, deliberate choice. And our heart needs inspiration. And that comes from connection, community. It comes from spiritual practice and reading. Because once we have those connected, we have the courage and the power to change. We have the power because we're strong enough. If we're at odds inside of ourselves, we don't have the courage it takes to change. You look at the people on our wisdom wall here. Every one of them. Every single one of them had dynamic courage to fight obstacles, to let the truth of who they are, what they're here to do, what their soul, their divine mission and purpose to show through. They're models for us to do that. So we need to be sure we get those two things in control. And when we trust the process, there's another fearless mystic. And I read a little bit about her this week, Saint Teresa of Avila. She was from Spanish nobility in the 16th century. Ooh, she was a spicy gal. And she started out her life really spicy, even though she was her dad's favorite of 13 kids. She got in some trouble, and she had to be sent to a boarding school, I believe, or something. And she got sick there and came home, and her life started getting in alignment from a near-death experience, and she found She found God. And it took her until she was when she was 50, she started absolutely doing her work, which was as a mystic. She fought odds you can't even believe. She fought so much. Interesting woman to study. But her prayer is something that we could actually keep in our pocket, in our wallet, wherever it is, to just remind us that no matter where we are, no matter what's going on in our life, there's that unmoved mover. There's that stability, whatever you call that, God, infinite intelligence, unlimited potential, whatever you call it, it's always there. And it's so simple for a great thinker. She said, "Let nothing disturb you, let nothing frighten you. All things are passing away. God never changes." Never. God never changes. Patience obtains all things. Whoever has God lacks nothing. God always is enough. God always suffices. So we can keep that little prayer in our pocket, or we can have just a few words that we keep there too. In ancient Greece, they had a wisdom contest, and they wanted to find someone who could find one sentence that would always answer the truth, would always tell the truth. So people put in all these sentences that they thought were the one truth. And the winner of the contest, I was counting how many words, like I couldn't just count 4 words on my finger, but 4 words in that sentence, the winner. This too shall pass. Wherever you are, what's ever going on, I mean, it can be hard when it's a really wonderful thing, but you got the memory to hold. But this too shall pass. We can move and we can be there and know, things are going to be okay. If I was thinking, I started with the butterfly, because the butterfly is a great teacher in so many ways. And we look at the world, and it does seem overwhelming to me, as you said, so much of the divisiveness, Dave, you were talking about, and so much hatred in the world. And, you know, Ernest Holmes said the one thing we cannot have is hatred. We have to dispel hatred in the world. It just causes too much. We see man's inhumanity to man, and all this is going on. And what can we do? What can we do as a single person do amidst all of these problems? And I'll tell you, the butterfly has a lot to teach us. Because what the caterpillar calls the end of life, the master calls a butterfly. And what scientists say is that what happens when the caterpillar is no longer workable, it comes to a critical place of unworkability. I'm going to say that word again because I think we could all apply it in places in our own life and places in the world. Critical unworkability. But what happens is imaginal cells form that are already there, but they come to life inside the caterpillar. These imaginal cells, which are like-minded cells, which hold the greater possibility of the caterpillar. And they're like-minded cells, and they come together, and they cause this transformation to a greater creation, a higher design for living. It actually transformed to a higher design to live and be in the world in a new way. We have in ourselves the same imaginal cells, or a higher impulsion, or a divine urge in us that's always there. Just like the caterpillar had those cells in its being when it could no longer function as a caterpillar. Well, it seems right now that our world is no longer functioning the way we know it could, the way it's meant to be. We need to take time every day to listen to our heart and the desire of our heart, what our heart wants and knows, that we can feed our mind and give it focus and direction and get ourselves motivated from the wisdom of our heart and that divine urge, those little imaginal cells in us. What's possible here? What can I do? What's more? What do I have to give right now? And of course, Ernest Holmes, if we boil it down to the simplest thing, says, love really clears many mistakes. We can do a lot, and forgiveness and all that if we just infuse love into what we're doing. So right before we get into a great song and jump into the river of life, just put your feet on the floor. Open yourselves up right now. Just unwind yourself. Take a nice deep breath, and I like to just say, let your head rest on your heart so it doesn't have to work so hard all the time. You can just trust right now that around us, within us, and through us, there is the power and presence of goodness, of love, of light, of possibility. Right here in this moment, no matter what confusion is in our life or in the world, there's a goodness and a possibility that needs our attention, that needs our time and focus to grow and become the light of possibility, the light of caring and service to others, the light of caring for ourselves, forgiveness, whatever it is for you that brings a greater light to the world. We have to focus on the bright spots within ourselves and within our world. So right here and now, we see that spot, that light of knowing that God is right here, goodness is right here where we are. And so in this moment, as we're just resting in this energy of goodness and love and light and caring and possibility and all that's true and all that's good, ask that place in you that knows, what is mine to let go of right now, that I can embrace change, that I can become a little more than I am right now, a lot more than I am, that I can let go of this anger, this frustration, this resistance, this judgment, whatever it is that keeps us stuck. You know, I know, the place within you knows. So breathe into that, and if it came to you now, beautiful. And if not, just keep that space open here in this moment. And as you proceed and move through your day, keep the space open for those imaginational cells, for those higher impulsion ideas, for those greater truths to be revealed to you, that we may together grow and evolve and change into something more, that we become a brighter light, that we become that beacon of love that changes things. Take a nice deep breath and let that energy just fill your entire body here, because after we've done our inner work, we get to do our outer work. So take a nice deep breath and open your eyes. And just imagine in this moment, it's time. Now we've done our work, right? Now it's time to play. So we're going to jump in that river of life together. We're going to wave to each other, and we're going to be washed away of all we don't want, so we can celebrate life, celebrate goodness, and celebrate one another. I love you all, and I thank you for being here on this journey with me. We'll float together. And so it is.